Welcome to the story of Lena Price, a seasoned detective whose sharp mind and unconventional methods have earned her a reputation in the world of criminal investigations. But Lena is far more than just a brilliant investigator. She's a woman shaped by tragedy, haunted by the shadows of her past. This is a story about resilience, redemption, and a battle not just against a mystery, but against the confines of one's own mind. Lena's journey begins with her return to work after a devastating personal loss, the mysterious death of her younger brother, Max. His passing shattered her world, leaving her plagued by nightmares, guilt, and questions that refused to fade. Now, her first case back on the job brings her to the isolated town of Cedar Hollow, a place as enigmatic as the mystery she's been sent to solve. A series of disappearances has left the town paralyzed with fear. The victims vanish without a trace, leaving behind only a chilling message: "They're coming for us." The tight-lipped townspeople and the unsettling aura of Cedar Hollow make it clear to Lena that this is no ordinary case. As Lena begins her investigation, she finds herself entangled in more than just the mystery of the missing. The case draws parallels to her own life, reawakening buried memories of her brother and pulling her into a web of secrets, fear, and manipulation. What starts as a search for answers becomes a journey into the heart of darkness, both in the town of Cedar Hollow and within Lena herself. Prepare to step into a world where the lines between reality and illusion blur, where fear is a weapon, and where Lena must confront the shadows of her past to uncover the truth about the town and about herself. This is the beginning of Cedar Hollow, the haunting legacy of Lena Price. Price is not your average detective. At 39, she's a seasoned investigator with a reputation for her keen intellect and unconventional methods. But her sharp mind and quick thinking are only part of her story. Lena's life has been shaped by extraordinary challenges, making her both an exceptional detective and a deeply human character. Lena grew up in a turbulent household, where she learned to be resourceful and resilient. These traits would later fuel her success in the high-stakes world of criminal investigations. She joined the force in her 20s and quickly made a name for herself by solving complex cases others found unsolvable. Her unorthodox approach, thinking outside the box and following leads no one else would consider, earned her both admiration and criticism. Yet, Lena was undeterred, driven by an insatiable need for justice. However, even the strongest individuals can be brought to their knees by tragedy. A year ago, Lena experienced a devastating loss. Her younger brother Max died under mysterious circumstances. His death wasn't just a personal loss, it was a psychological earthquake. Lena was haunted by guilt and unanswered questions. Was it an accident? Foul play? Or something else entirely? This mystery gnawed at her, consuming her thoughts and shattering her confidence. The trauma manifested in vivid nightmares, debilitating panic attacks, and even gaps in her memory. Realizing she couldn't continue this way, Lena took a year-long sabbatical from work to heal. But recovery was slow, and even after returning, she wasn't the same. Her return to the force wasn't just about solving crimes. It was about reclaiming her sense of purpose and control over her life. Lena's first case upon her return is as mysterious as it is chilling. Set in the quiet, remote town of Cedar Hollow, a small community surrounded by dense forests, this case involves the sudden disappearance of several residents. These vanishings are unlike anything Lena has encountered before. All the victims vanished in the dead of night, leaving no trace except for a cryptic note in their homes: "They're coming for us." The disappearances have left the police baffled and the townspeople paralyzed with fear. What makes the case even more unnerving is the town itself. Cedar Hollow has an eerie atmosphere, its isolation amplifying the sense of dread. The townsfolk are tight-lipped, as if they know something they're too afraid to say. As Lena delves into the case, her own struggles resurface. The haunting memories of her brother's death threaten to interfere with her ability to focus. Her vivid nightmares return, blending with the grim realities of the case, making it hard for her to separate fact from fear. At times, she doubts herself. Can she still trust her instincts? Can she overcome her trauma and solve this case? But Lena is nothing if not determined. She channels her pain into her work, using it as fuel to drive her forward. She begins to piece together clues, drawing on her unique ability to see patterns where others see chaos. Her return to Cedar Hollow isn't just about finding the missing. It's about proving to herself that she can still be the detective she once was. Lena Price's story is compelling because it's not just about a detective solving crimes. It's about a person battling their inner demons while navigating a world filled with uncertainty and danger. Her journey is one of resilience and redemption. Her intellect, tenacity, and flawed humanity make her a character who resonates deeply with us. We see in her a reflection of our own struggles and triumphs. Her current case in Cedar Hollow is more than a mystery. It's a crucible, testing her limits and pushing her to confront not only the darkness in the town but also the shadows within herself. As Lena steps into Cedar Hollow, a creeping sense of unease immediately settles over her. The town, a patchwork of weathered buildings and winding streets, feels frozen in time, its charm overshadowed by an almost palpable tension. With every step, she senses the eyes of wary residents following her, their guarded expressions revealing more than their polite words ever could. This isn't just a town, it's a tightly wound community where secrets are currency and outsiders are unwelcome intrusions. Lena's first encounter is with Sheriff Noah Fields, a stoic figure who carries the weight of the town's troubles on his broad shoulders. Noah, a lifelong resident of Cedar Hollow, is not just a lawman but a protector of his people. Yet, his deep concern over the recent wave of disappearances is evident in his tired eyes and clipped tone. He's caught between his duty to maintain order and the growing hysteria that threatens to unravel the fragile threads holding the town together. Determined to peel back the layers of mystery, Lena begins her investigation by speaking with the families of the missing. Her questions, however, are met with hesitation and fear. Whispers of strange noises echo through their accounts, a distant wailing in the dead of night, footsteps in empty woods. Others describe an unsettling sensation of being watched, as though the town itself were alive and conscious of their every move. The answers Lena receives feel incomplete, as though the residents are bound by an unspoken pact to keep the truth hidden. Just as her efforts seem to hit a wall, Lena receives an anonymous tip that shifts the course of her investigation. The caller, Evelyn, is a reclusive woman who lives on the outskirts of town in a crumbling house overrun by creeping ivy. Meeting her proves to be as unsettling as the town itself. Evelyn's eyes are wide with a mix of fear and conviction as she speaks of an ancient, malevolent entity that preys on Cedar Hollow. According to her, this being doesn't just claim its victims. It manipulates them, feeding on their terror and paranoia until there's nothing left of their sanity. Evelyn's warning is chilling. The town isn't just hiding secrets, it's complicit in them. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle in the woods, every whispered conversation seems to be tied to the presence of this ancient evil. As Lena listens, she feels the weight of the town's fear pressing down on her, a suffocating force that seems determined to keep its grip on Cedar Hollow. The investigation has only just begun, but Lena knows one thing for sure: this is no ordinary missing persons case. Something far darker is at play, and it's waiting for her to uncover its truths, or to fall victim to them herself. Driven by a mix of curiosity and skepticism, Lena decides to take Evelyn up on her cryptic warning, visiting the recluse's secluded home under the cover of night. The house, perched at the edge of the town's dense forest, looms in the moonlight like a forgotten relic. Its peeling paint and creaking shutters are a testament to years of neglect, but it's the aura of the place that sends a shiver down Lena's spine. The oppressive silence around it feels unnatural, as if the forest itself is holding its breath. When Lena knocks, the door creaks open, revealing Evelyn in a state of palpable distress. Her hands tremble as she clutches a threadbare shawl around her shoulders, and her wild eyes dart nervously toward unseen corners of the room. The faint smell of burning herbs fills the air, mingling with the stale scent of decay. Evelyn speaks in frantic whispers, describing visions she claims to have had, terrifying glimpses of those who disappeared from Cedar Hollow. She insists that the missing are still alive, their wills bent and twisted by an unseen force that preys on their fear. Evelyn's words teeter between madness and revelation, but what sends a chill through Lena is the conviction in her voice. Before Lena can dismiss her as another superstitious local, Evelyn places something in her hands, an old, faded photograph. It's a group photo taken decades ago in Cedar Hollow, the faces in it frozen in time. At first glance, the picture seems ordinary, but then Lena's breath catches in her throat. One of the faces in the photograph looks eerily like her late brother, Max, his familiar, lopsided grin staring back at her from the sepia-toned image. Lena struggles to make sense of what she's seeing. Her brother had died years ago in circumstances she'd never fully come to terms with. Yet here he is, or someone who looks exactly like him, standing among a group of strangers in a town he'd never even visited. The photograph feels heavy in her hands, as though it carries the weight of countless unanswered questions. Before she can press Evelyn for more details, the woman lets out a blood-curdling scream. Her hands fly to her head as if trying to block out an invisible force, her body convulsing violently. Lena rushes to her side, but it's too late. Evelyn collapses into her arms, her eyes wide with terror and her face frozen in a grimace of unimaginable fear. The life drains from her in an instant, leaving Lena alone in the dimly lit room, the photograph clutched tightly in her trembling fingers. The silence that follows is deafening. Lena stares down at Evelyn's lifeless form, her mind racing. The woman's sudden death feels anything but natural, and the fear etched into her features seems to echo the ominous warning she'd given just moments before. Clutching the photograph, Lena feels an overwhelming sense that she's stumbled into something far beyond her understanding. Evelyn's cryptic words, the inexplicable photograph, and her untimely death form a trifecta of terror that Lena can't ignore. The shadows in Cedar Hollow are no longer just metaphorical, they're alive and they're watching. As Lena steps out into the cold night air, the weight of the photograph in her pocket is a constant reminder that the darkness she glimpsed tonight is only the beginning. As the days unfold in Cedar Hollow, Lena finds herself trapped in an unsettling spiral. The strange occurrences begin subtly, a whispered voice in the dead of night, the faint rustle of movement where no one should be. Shadows flit at the edge of her vision, vanishing the moment she turns her head. What starts as a mild unease soon becomes an all-consuming paranoia. It's as though the town itself is conspiring against her, feeding on her fear and uncertainty. One night, returning to her hotel room after a particularly long day of fruitless interviews, Lena finds the door slightly ajar. Her pulse quickens as she pushes it open, the creak of the hinges unnervingly loud in the stillness. Inside, the room looks untouched, nothing seems out of place. But when she checks her belongings, she discovers the photograph Evelyn had given her is gone. The disappearance is as baffling as it is alarming. Why would someone take the photograph and nothing else? The image of her brother's face, so eerily out of time, lingers in her mind, a haunting reminder of the mystery she's entangled in. The missing photograph feels like a personal attack, as if someone, or something, is trying to erase the breadcrumb trail she's following. Lena starts to question her own sanity. Could she have misplaced it in her growing exhaustion? Or is someone deliberately toying with her, making her doubt herself? The whispers grow louder at night, the shadows more persistent. Her nerves are frayed, her sleep plagued by vivid nightmares of distorted faces and chilling whispers of, "They're coming for us." Determined to uncover the truth, Lena throws herself into researching the town's history. The local archives, dusty and dimly lit, are a treasure trove of unsettling secrets. She uncovers records of mysterious disappearances spanning more than 50 years. The pattern is undeniable. Every few decades, people vanish without a trace. Each disappearance is accompanied by the same chilling detail, a cryptic note left behind bearing the words, "They're coming for us." The deeper Lena digs, the darker the story becomes. A name appears repeatedly in the records: William Calder, Cedar Hollow's enigmatic founder. Described as a reclusive visionary, Calder was both revered and feared by the townsfolk. Rumors swirled about his experiments with dark rituals, his obsession with unlocking the power of the human mind. Lena learns that Calder vanished without a trace decades ago, but not before leaving behind a journal filled with nightmarish sketches. The images are haunting, faces twisted and distorted, their expressions frozen in anguish. Calder's journal hints at a sinister force he believed could be harnessed, though the details are maddeningly vague. As Lena pores over the records, she begins to feel the weight of the town's dark legacy pressing down on her. The connections between the past and the present are undeniable, yet infuriatingly incomplete. Every thread she follows seems to fray at the edges, leaving her with more questions than answers. Worse still, the visions and whispers intensify, creeping into her waking hours. She feels eyes on her wherever she goes, her every step shadowed by an unseen presence. Lena's grip on reality starts to falter. The photograph of Max, its existence, its disappearance, has become a maddening focal point. The parallels between the old stories and her own experiences are too stark to ignore. Is she unraveling a long-buried truth, or is the same insidious force that haunted Evelyn now setting its sights on her? In Cedar Hollow, the line between past and present, reality and nightmare, is blurring, and Lena is no longer sure which side she's standing on. As the mystery deepens, Lena finds herself drawn back to the enigmatic photograph Evelyn had given her, now returned inexplicably to the nightstand in her hotel room as if mocking her earlier panic. She examines it more closely this time, her fingers tracing the faded edges as she studies the faces frozen in sepia tones. The figure that resembles Max is undeniable, but what strikes her next sends a chill through her. Standing beside him, with a piercing gaze and an air of quiet authority, is William Calder, the town's long-disappeared founder. The photograph becomes a catalyst for memories Lena had long buried. They surface in disjointed fragments, like pieces of a puzzle she can't quite assemble. She remembers Max's death, an event shrouded in confusion and pain. He had been found under circumstances that never fully made sense, drowned in the lake near their childhood home, despite being an excellent swimmer. Lena recalls the grief that consumed her, but also something else: guilt. There had been a fight, a heated argument that left her angry and him storming out. What had they argued about? The details elude her, slipping through her grasp every time she tries to pin them down. The more she thinks about it, the more her memories of Max feel altered, as if something had deliberately obscured the truth. Snatches of their last conversation echo in her mind, laced with words she can't place but that feel heavy with meaning. Was there something Max had been trying to tell her? Something she didn't understand at the time? The photograph's presence, linking him to Cedar Hollow's dark past, stirs questions she can't ignore. Lena starts to experience strange episodes of déjà vu, moments where the present feels hauntingly familiar. Walking through the town's forest, she finds herself overwhelmed by the sense that she's been there before, not during this investigation, but in some other, forgotten moment. The crunch of leaves underfoot, the scent of pine in the air, the eerie stillness, they trigger a memory she can't fully access. The sensation is both unsettling and strangely comforting, as though the town itself holds a connection to her that she has yet to uncover. As she continues to delve into the town's history, Lena begins to notice parallels between the events surrounding Max's death and the disappearances in Cedar Hollow. The cryptic warnings of "they're coming for us" take on new significance. Had Max been caught up in something he never shared with her? Was his death a tragic accident, or was it tied to the same force that now seems to haunt her? The photograph seems to blur the line between past and present, suggesting that whatever is happening in Cedar Hollow has roots deeper than Lena could have imagined, roots that may extend to her own family. The unsettling resemblance between her brother and the young man in the photograph gnaws at her. If it truly is Max, how is that possible? Had he been involved with Calder's experiments, or was it merely an uncanny coincidence? The fragmented memories continue to plague her, growing sharper yet more elusive with each passing day. Lena can't shake the feeling that the answers lie within her own past, entangled with the secrets of Cedar Hollow. But as she edges closer to the truth, she begins to fear that uncovering it might cost her more than she's prepared to lose. The shadows of her brother's death and the town's dark history are converging, drawing her into a web of mystery where her own connection feels disturbingly personal and inescapable. Desperate to untangle the increasingly personal threads of her investigation, Lena arranges a meeting with Sheriff Noah Fields. They sit in a dimly lit diner on the outskirts of Cedar Hollow, the flickering neon sign outside casting an eerie glow over their conversation. Noah seems unusually tense, his usually steady demeanor frayed at the edges. When Lena lays out her findings, the photograph, the recurring name of William Calder, and the unsettling connection to her brother, Max, Noah's face tightens, his reluctance unmistakable. At first, Noah tries to deflect her questions, claiming there's nothing more to uncover, but Lena refuses to back down. The frustration and urgency in her voice finally break through his defenses. He leans forward, his voice dropping to a hushed, almost conspiratorial tone. What he reveals sends Lena reeling. According to Noah, Max had been involved in a secret experiment conducted by Calder decades ago. Calder's work, shrouded in mystery and controversy, revolved around the manipulation of the human mind. He believed fear was the key to unlocking control over perception and memory, theorizing that by pushing individuals to their psychological limits, he could reshape their thoughts and actions. Max, along with several other residents of Cedar Hollow, had been unwitting subjects in these experiments. The experiments weren't just invasive, they were cruel, bordering on the sadistic. Calder's methods involved sensory deprivation, hallucinatory triggers, and inducing a shared psychosis among his victims. Lena is horrified when Noah reveals an even darker truth. She, too, had been a part of these experiments. As a child, she had been subjected to Calder's manipulations, though her memories of that time were suppressed, perhaps intentionally altered. Max, Noah explains, had tried to shield her from Calder's influence, stepping into the role of her protector. His resistance had made him a target. Calder, determined to eliminate any obstacles to his work, had orchestrated Max's death. It wasn't an accident, nor was it unrelated to the disappearances that plagued Cedar Hollow over the years. Noah explains that Calder's experiments aimed to funnel fear into a collective mental state, a shared psychosis that allowed him to control not just individuals, but groups. The goal was chillingly ambitious: to manipulate reality itself for his subjects, bending their perceptions and memories until they were no longer their own. But Calder's grand vision unraveled. His methods were unstable, and the fear he conjured in his subjects eventually spiraled out of his control. The town descended into paranoia, fractured by the lingering effects of Calder's failed experiment. What happened to Calder? Lena demands, her voice shaking. Noah hesitates, his gaze shifting to the window as if expecting to see Calder's ghost standing outside. He disappeared, he finally says. Vanished without a trace. But not before he left his mark on this town, on all of us. Noah's words hit Lena like a hammer. The paranoia, the whispers, the feeling of being watched, it all begins to make a sickening kind of sense. Calder's legacy is still alive, woven into the fabric of Cedar Hollow and its people. The disappearances, the cryptic warnings, even her own fragmented memories, they are all echoes of Calder's manipulations, remnants of a fear that refuses to die. Lena's mind races as she tries to process the revelation. If Calder's experiments had reached so deeply into her own life, what else had he taken from her? How many of her memories are real, and how many were shaped by his twisted experiments? The thought that her very perception of reality might not be her own sends a wave of nausea through her. Noah's admission explains much but also raises more questions. Did Calder truly vanish, or is he still pulling strings from the shadows? Was Evelyn's death connected to his lingering influence? And most pressing of all, is Lena herself still under his control in ways she hasn't realized? As Lena leaves the diner, her mind is a storm of fear and determination. Calder's experiments may have failed, but their scars remain etched into the town and its people, and into her own mind. The shadows of Cedar Hollow are no longer abstract. They are deeply personal, and Lena knows she has no choice but to face them. As the pieces fall into place, Lena begins to understand the sinister pattern underlying the disappearances in Cedar Hollow. The people who vanished weren't random victims. They were Calder's failed experiments, their minds fractured beyond repair. What she had dismissed as paranoia now becomes chillingly real. Calder's influence, though decades removed, is not gone. It's alive, seeping through the town like a malignant force. And now it's coming for her. The realization strikes Lena with a terrifying clarity. Calder's experiments never truly ended. The shared psychosis he sought to create has been lying dormant, and she is its next victim. The whispers she hears, the shadows she sees, the gnawing sense of unreality, these aren't symptoms of her unraveling sanity. They are deliberate, calculated manipulations. Calder's legacy is trying to pull her into the same abyss that consumed her brother and so many others. Determined to confront the source of her torment, Lena seeks out Noah. The sheriff's evasiveness and half-truths have grown too conspicuous to ignore. She finds him in his office, surrounded by the trappings of law enforcement that now feel like a thin veneer over something far darker. The conversation begins cautiously, but Lena's mounting frustration forces the truth to the surface. At first, Noah denies her accusations, insisting he's as much a victim of the town's horrors as she is. But Lena presses harder, her voice rising, demanding answers about Calder, the disappearances, and his own role in the chaos. Finally, Noah's composure cracks. His expression shifts from defensive to something far more unsettling, a mix of pity and fanaticism. "You don't understand," Noah says, his voice low and trembling. Calder wasn't just a man. He was a visionary. He saw what others couldn't, the truth about fear, about control. He understood that the mind is the most powerful weapon, and he was so close to unlocking its potential. But the others, they were weak. They couldn't handle the gift he was offering. The weight of his words settles over Lena like a suffocating fog. Noah isn't just complicit in Calder's experiments. He's a believer, a disciple. He reveals that he has been manipulating her from the moment she arrived in Cedar Hollow, steering her investigation, feeding her just enough information to keep her tethered to the town. Calder's experiment didn't die with him. It was passed on to his followers, Noah included, who have spent decades trying to perfect it. You were always meant to come back, Noah says, his tone almost reverent. Calder saw something in your family, something in you and Max. You're special, Lena. You can help us finish what he started. The words hit Lena like a blow. She realizes with a sickening certainty that every step of her journey has been orchestrated, not by chance but by design. The photograph, Evelyn's cryptic warnings, even her own fragmented memories, they were all pieces of a larger game, a trap to draw her deeper into Calder's web. But Noah isn't finished. He reveals the final horrifying truth. The town itself is the experiment. Cedar Hollow isn't just a collection of isolated, fearful residents. It's a living laboratory, a testing ground for Calder's twisted vision of a world where no one is free from his control. The whispers Lena hears, the shadows she sees, they are manifestations of the collective psychosis Calder's experiments unleashed. And now, Noah intends to complete the process, using Lena as the catalyst. No, Lena whispers, her voice trembling with both fear and defiance. I won't let you. I won't be part of this. Noah's smile is cold, almost sympathetic. You don't have a choice, Lena. You never did. The confrontation escalates as Lena fights to resist the pull of Calder's influence. The room seems to warp around her, the walls closing in, the air heavy with a suffocating dread. She can feel the tendrils of the shared psychosis creeping into her mind, blurring the line between reality and illusion. But Lena knows she can't give in. If she succumbs, she will become another pawn in Calder's game, another mind lost to his insidious power. Summoning every ounce of strength, Lena turns the tables on Noah. She confronts him not with fear, but with the one weapon Calder's experiments never accounted for, her own unyielding will. She forces herself to remember Max, not just his death, but his life, his love, and his determination to protect her. She channels that memory like a beacon, using it to anchor herself against the rising tide of madness. In the end, it isn't brute force or cunning that saves Lena, it's her refusal to let go of her identity, her sense of self. She exposes Noah for what he truly is, not a visionary, but a puppet, a man so consumed by Calder's vision that he no longer sees his own humanity. Confronted with Lena's strength, Noah falters, the cracks in his facade widening until he collapses under the weight of his own delusions. As the dust settles, Lena stands alone, battered but unbroken. The experiment has failed, its final victim refusing to play the part Calder had written for her. But the scars remain, etched into the town and into Lena herself. Cedar Hollow may never be free of Calder's shadow, but Lena knows one thing for certain. She has reclaimed her mind, her memories, and her power. The darkness recedes, but its echoes linger, a reminder of the battle she fought and the resilience she found within herself. As Lena's investigation progresses, a chilling realization dawns on her. The disappearances in Cedar Hollow are far from random. The pattern is clear now. Those who vanish are connected by one thing. They were all subjects of Calder's mind manipulation experiments. Over time, their minds, unable to withstand the strain of his twisted machinations, shattered beyond repair, leaving them vulnerable to the void Calder left behind. And now, as Lena pieces together the horrifying truth, she feels the same insidious grip tightening around her mind. Whispers become a constant presence in her ears, no longer faint but persistent, accusatory. Shadows dart at the edges of her vision, taunting her with their elusiveness. The photograph of Max and Calder, a grim artifact of the past, seems almost alive, its meaning shifting each time Lena looks at it. Every step she takes in Cedar Hollow feels like moving through a dream or a nightmare, where the boundaries of reality blur, manipulated by a force she can't fully understand. The moment of revelation comes during a tense meeting with Sheriff Noah Fields. Over the weeks, Noah had seemed both a reluctant ally and a figure of mystery, someone whose knowledge of Cedar Hollow's dark past seemed both helpful and deliberately limited. But now, Lena confronts him with what she's learned, demanding answers she suspects he's been withholding. At first, Noah deflects her questions, his tone firm but evasive. "You've been through a lot, Lena," he says, his words tinged with an almost fatherly concern. "This town gets under your skin. It's easy to start seeing patterns where there aren't any." But Lena refuses to be placated. She lays the evidence before him: the disappearances, the photograph, Calder's experiments, and the whispers she can no longer ignore. She accuses Noah of knowing more than he's letting on. As her voice rises, Noah's carefully maintained mask begins to crack. "You don't understand what you're messing with," he finally snaps, his voice low and trembling with something between fear and anger. "This isn't about solving a mystery, Lena. This is about survival, for you and for this town." His words chill her. Survival from what? She demands, but the answer is far worse than she imagined. With a sigh of resignation, Noah begins to speak, and what he reveals sends shockwaves through Lena's mind. He isn't just a sheriff, he's one of Calder's followers. Decades ago, Noah was among those who fell victim to Calder's experiments, his mind reshaped and his loyalty irrevocably warped. Calder had succeeded in creating the shared psychosis he'd envisioned, binding his followers to him with chains forged from fear and manipulation. Even after Calder's physical disappearance, his influence remained, woven into the fabric of the town and its people. "You think you came here by chance?" Noah says, his tone shifting from defensive to accusatory. "You think you're the one chasing answers? No, Lena. You were brought here, guided just like the others. You're part of this, whether you like it or not." Lena recoils at his words, the weight of their implications suffocating. She realizes with dawning horror that Noah has been manipulating her from the start, keeping her in Cedar Hollow not to solve its mysteries, but to fulfill them. The photograph, Evelyn's cryptic warnings, even the whispers in her mind, they weren't coincidences or symptoms of her unraveling sanity. They were tools, carefully placed to push her deeper into Calder's trap. Noah confirms her worst fear. The town itself is Calder's experiment, a living, breathing entity shaped by his dark vision. Cedar Hollow isn't just home to a collection of isolated, paranoid residents. It's a testing ground, a laboratory for Calder's ultimate goal. The shared psychosis he created didn't die with him. It has been festering, waiting for the right moment to resurface. And Lena, with her connection to Calder's earlier experiments through Max, is the key to reviving it. As Noah speaks, Lena feels the insidious pull of Calder's influence growing stronger. Her mind becomes a battleground, the whispers in her head intensifying, urging her to give in, to embrace the chaos Calder promised. Shadows seem to creep from the corners of the room, their movements synchronized with the rising tension in her chest. The walls close in, and for a moment, she wonders if Noah is right, if she has no choice, if this is her destiny. But then she remembers Max. Her brother had fought against this force, had sacrificed himself to protect her from Calder's reach. He hadn't given up, even when the odds were insurmountable. And now, standing on the edge of the same abyss, Lena knows she must do the same. "You think I'm going to let you, or Calder, win?" she says, her voice steady despite the chaos in her mind. "You've spent your life living in fear of a man who's been dead for decades. But I'm not afraid of him. And I'm not afraid of you." The confrontation turns physical as Noah, driven by his fanatical devotion, tries to force Lena to stay in Cedar Hollow. The room becomes a blur of motion and shadows as they struggle, the whispers in Lena's mind reaching a deafening crescendo. But Lena fights not just Noah, but the pull of the shared psychosis threatening to consume her. She uses the memories of her brother, of her own strength, as a shield against the chaos. In a desperate final act, Lena manages to break free from Noah's grasp, leaving him behind as she escapes into the night. The town seems to pulse with a malevolent energy, as though Calder's presence is trying to stop her. But Lena refuses to be trapped. As dawn breaks, Lena stands on the outskirts of Cedar Hollow, her mind clearer than it's been in days. She knows the fight isn't over, Calder's influence still lingers, and the town remains a dark monument to his twisted vision. But for the first time, she feels a glimmer of hope. Calder's experiment may have broken many, but it hasn't broken her. With a resolve forged in the fires of fear and defiance, Lena vows to expose the truth about Cedar Hollow and to ensure that Calder's shadow never claims another victim. The battle for the town, and her own mind, may be over, but the war against Calder's legacy has just begun. The decaying church at the heart of Cedar Hollow stands as a silent monument to the town's dark history, its weathered walls and shattered stained glass windows casting eerie patterns of light and shadow. It is here that Lena confronts Noah for what she believes will be the final time. The air inside is heavy, carrying the faint, metallic scent of decay. The whispers that have haunted her since her arrival are louder now, a ceaseless chorus that seems to echo from every corner of the abandoned sanctuary. Noah stands near the altar, his face a mask of calm conviction. He doesn't flinch as Lena storms toward him, her voice trembling with rage and determination. "This ends now," she says, her words slicing through the oppressive silence. But Noah's response is not what she expects. He doesn't defend himself or deny her accusations. Instead, he smiles, a slow, unsettling expression that sends a chill down Lena's spine. "You still don't see it, do you?" he asks, his voice tinged with pity. "This was never about me. It was never even about Calder. It's about you, Lena. It's always been about you." As Noah speaks, the walls of Lena's reality begin to crumble. He reveals that the entire town of Cedar Hollow has been living under an illusion, manipulated not by Calder's lingering influence, but by something far more insidious, the collective psyche of its inhabitants. The townspeople, including Noah, have been led to believe they are part of a grand experiment. But the truth is far more horrifying. They are not participants but prisoners, their minds trapped in a cycle of fear and control that feeds on itself. "It was never an experiment," Noah says, his voice rising above the whispers. "It's a prison of the mind. And you're the one keeping it alive." Lena's breath catches in her throat as Noah's words sink in. The disappearances, the fragmented memories, the photograph of Max, all of it begins to rearrange itself in her mind, forming a picture that is both horrifying and inescapable. She remembers the church now, not as a discovery, but as a place she has been before. It is where her brother, Max, died, and where her own mind began to fracture under the weight of grief and manipulation. Lena turns to leave, desperate to escape the oppressive atmosphere, but she finds herself surrounded. The townspeople have emerged from the shadows, their faces devoid of emotion, their eyes blank and lifeless. They stare at her, unmoving, a silent wall of humanity that blocks every exit. The whispers grow louder, an overwhelming cacophony that seems to come not from outside, but from within her own mind. She pleads with them, shouts for them to let her go, but they do not respond. Instead, Noah steps forward, his voice calm and measured. "You still don't understand," he says. "You've never truly left Cedar Hollow. Everything you've seen, everything you've experienced, it's all been part of the same trap. The experiment wasn't designed to study you. It was designed to break you." Lena's knees buckle as the full weight of the revelation crashes down on her. Max's death was not a tragic accident, as she had convinced herself for years. It was part of the same psychological torment she has been subjected to all along. The experiment was never Calder's, it was hers. She had constructed the walls of this prison herself, piecing them together from her grief, her guilt, and her fear. In a final, shocking realization, Lena understands that the entire narrative she has been chasing, the disappearances, Calder's experiments, even her confrontation with Noah, has been a product of her own fractured mind. The photograph of Max, the cryptic warnings, the oppressive atmosphere of Cedar Hollow, they are manifestations of her own internal battle, her psyche trying desperately to reconcile the trauma she has suppressed for years. But just as the truth begins to solidify in her mind, it slips away again, leaving her questioning whether it was real. The whispers grow deafening now, drowning out her thoughts. The townspeople close in, their faces shifting and warping like reflections in a funhouse mirror. Noah's voice echoes in her mind, repeating the same phrase over and over. It's all in your head. As the walls of the church seem to close in around her, Lena whispers to herself, her voice trembling with fear and uncertainty. It's all in my head, or is it? Hey, thanks for sticking around until the end. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with some who would love it, and of course, subscribe if you haven't already. Don't forget to turn on the notifications by clicking the bell, so you're always in the loop. See you next time.